Hello and welcome to your GCSE English Language lecture on Paper 2, Question 2. In this lecture, your objectives are to understand how to answer the second question on Paper 2. Okay, so about Question 2. Question 2 is a summary question worth 8 marks, okay? Now, this assesses both parts of AO1, Assessment Objective 1. Identify and interpret explicit and implicit information and ideas, and select and synthesize evidence from different texts. Okay, so you've got to be very careful here. You've got to pick out pieces from both texts, all right, and identify and interpret explicit or implicit meaning. So I'll go through what that means in a minute in a bit more detail. This can be difficult because the question doesn't really tell you what you need to do to get high marks. You need to synthesize and infer meaning, all right? For the synthesis element, you must show understanding from both sources. So you need to use both texts. When they say synthesize, it means summarize from both texts what you think. Okay, now you can only score half of the marks available, which is 4 out of 8, if you only write about one of the texts. You must write about both because you're not synthesizing, when you're not taking information from both and coming up with a summary if you only use one of the sources. So you need to use both texts. Now you'll be asked to summarize, like I've said, differences or similarities or information about a certain topic presented in both sources. So you're going to look at both, you're going to take the information from them, and you're going to make a summary, okay? Or compare and contrast by looking at differences and similarities. It is very likely to have a narrow focus, so you might not find a lot to talk about in your answer, but it's 8 marks, so as long as you're using both texts, you'll be fine. Now, the key is not just to pick out differences or similarities, but also infer meaning. What does that mean? What do those similarities or differences mean? You can score a maximum of 8 marks on this question, so spend around 10 minutes on this. Okay? Spend around 10 minutes. Now, you can answer this question using a 3-step process. All right? You can find a point of difference or similarity. You can find a quotation to back up your answer. And then, given that this is the difference or similarity, what does this lead me to realise about what I've been asked to focus on? Basically, what does the point or evidence infer or tell you? Okay, so what is your point? What is your similarity or your difference? Find a quotation to back it up. And then, given that you've got that similarity or that difference, what does that lead you to understand? What does that make you realise? Oh yeah, I get it now. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Only choose points that you can take inferences from as well, Okay, so let's look at some examples and we'll go through it. So here's 3 questions. The first question says, you've got to look at source A and B, and both sources describe types of boards used for surfing. Use details from both sources to write a summary of what you understand about the different boards used by the surfers. Okay. You need to refer to you need to refer to both sources, all right? And you need to think about the different types of boards used. Okay, I'm just explaining it again. And you've got to come up with a summary of what you understand about the different boards. Not too tricky. Now you can choose one of 3 of these questions, or you can do all 3. It's up to you. The next question I've chosen for you to look at, again, you're looking at both sources. This will always be the case as well for question 2 on paper 2. Okay, both sources describe the similar ways in which drivers behave. Use both sources to write a summary of what you understand about the similar behaviour of the drivers. Okay, so similar ways drivers behave. You've got to write a summary of what you understand about the similar behaviour of the drivers. And then the last question I've chosen, again looking at both sources, the ways the boys spend their time playing as young children is different. Okay, the way the boys spend their time playing as young children is different. Use details from both sources to write a summary of the different activities the boy in source A enjoys and the boy in source B enjoyed when he was young. Okay. So the first one's about surfboards. The second one is about about the ways in which drivers behave. Okay, and then the third one is about how two children played differently. All right. So here is source A. I would like you to read through source A, pause the video, and then I'm going to put source B. So this is for the first question. I'm going to put both sources on for the first question. So pause where you need to. Then I'll put both sources on for the second question, and then I'll put both sources on for the third question. You can pause the video, read through the source that you want, or fast forward to the source that you want, depending on the chosen question. So there's source A. There's source B. And I've left the question there for you. Okay, I'll go through the answers then. So let's look at the answers for question 1, the first question. Okay, so here is a level 4 answer. Although the surfboards appear outwardly similar, the Hawaiian boards are no more sophisticated than a primitively shaped plank of wood, cut from the native breadfruit tree. Whereas some of the Californian boards use new, lighter materials such as balsa wood, suggesting the Americans are keen to develop their boards for a smoother performance. So, although it may not have outwardly said that, you've got to infer or understand that yes, that could be the case because the Americans have tried to adapt their boards to make them better. There is a sense of innovation in the way the surfers regard their boards, as the mahogany paddleboard is dismissed as old-fashioned and unbelievably awkward. The Hawaiians use natural resources to create hand-carved surfboards in the same traditional way as they would make a coffin lid, which suggests that their boards are an important part of their cultural way of life, not just a fashion accessory. Okay, so again, you've used both texts in both of those statements. Okay, you've done a comparison of both texts at the top and a comparison of both texts at the bottom. I would have done one more comparison, just because I want to make sure that you've got all your marks, your whole of your 8 marks, okay? But that's a level 4 answer. A level 3 answer. In source B, the surfboards used by the people of Hawaii are made of wood from the native breadfruit tree, suggesting that they use local natural materials. The boards are quite basic, a tough plank of wood, suggesting Hawaiian surfboards are more traditional, whereas in source A, the Americans are developing different types of board for different purposes. For example, the huge old-fashioned paddleboard is used by lifeguards for rescues. They are designing newer surfboards and using much better and much lighter wood, which implies they want to improve their performance. So even though the same comparisons have been made in both levels, the one in the level 4, it uses a few more quotes to back up their opinion. Okay, and again, we've got 2 separate comparisons in there. I would do one more. To get your grade, let me just delete some of the lines that I've made. To get your grade, you need to make perceptive inference from both texts. That means, what do you understand about the surfboards based on what you've read? You need to make inferences. If you haven't watched the video on inference, please go back and watch it. And if that's something you're struggling with, then speak to your tutor about it in your lessons. You need to make judicious references or use of textual detail relevant to the focus of the question. So these have, in the level 4, they've used more quotes, which is why you've got the level 4. And you've shown perceptive differences between the texts. Okay? That's fine. For the level 3, you've made clear inferences from both texts, selected clear references, but not as much as the other one, and shown clear differences between the text. You have, but not at the level of this one. Okay? So you need to make sure that you are really inferring, and don't forget to use your point, give me some evidence, and then explain and link it back to the question. Okay, if you had a go at the second question, here is text A. So if you pause the video and read it, and here is text B. So you can pause the video and read that. Okay, so a level 4 answer. So don't forget, in this one, it says to use details from both sources to write a summary of what you understand about the similar behaviour of the drivers. Similar behaviour. The driver in source A, who decided to overtake, shows behaviour which is irresponsible but rational. He makes an assessment of the risk in passing very closely and at speed, and does not intend any harm, although he knows that the odds are stacked in his favour. Cocooned as he is in his car, where he will not get hurt. On the other hand, the drivers in source B are intentionally targeting cyclists by passing so close, which suggests behaviour which is equally irresponsible, as they too know they are protected by their relative size to the bicycle and are unlikely to get hurt. But their behaviour is irrational and immoral too, because it is planned. The motivation of the cabmen who are chasing the lady and targeting the female rider suggests perhaps a particular hostility toward women who ride bicycles. Okay, so that's a really nicely written piece, and they've inferred a lot of meaning there, especially where it says hostility towards women. They've talked about how each person in the text is irresponsible and how they are protected by their car, whereas the people on the bike aren't. I would say there's about 3 points made there, which would be great. You'd get 8 marks there. So that was a level 4 answer. In a level 3 answer, one driver in source A decided to overtake my bike very closely and at speed, which shows he behaved in a reckless way, risking the other person's safety. In source B, the drivers behave in a very similar and inconsiderate way towards cyclists, as they love to share your handlebars and wheels passing so close, showing they are not behaving very respectfully or carefully to drive so close to the cyclist. Both drivers behave in inconsiderate ways, as in source A. The driver's dangerous behaviour is to make sure they get ahead of the cyclist in the congested traffic, and the drivers in source B are taking pleasure in chasing the lady on purpose. So there you've only probably got 2 points made, maybe not enough quotes, okay, because if we look at our reasoning behind our level 4 and our level 3, there's more inferences made in the level 4, they've used more textual detail and references, and they have shown similarities between the texts very well. Yes, okay, they've been done in the level 3, but not as in much detail as in the level 4. Again, don't be scared that you're not writing like these are. These are examiners who have written these answers, okay? You just need to make sure you make your point, give me some evidence, and explain your inference, okay? Explain your understanding. Explain the inference. Your understanding is very important here. What do you understand by that piece of text? All right. Okay, last one then. You have got source A here, and the last question asks you to use details from both sources to write a summary of the different activities the boy in source A enjoys and the boy in source B enjoyed when he was young. So, text A, pause the video to read it. And text B, pause the video to read it. Okay, so let's look at some answers then. Here is a level 4 answer. The activities of the boy in source A are limited compared to the Victorian boy, who has a wider choice of exciting and adventurous games to play. The toddler in source A enjoys making a noise, exploring the sound effect of his own voice as he barks gibberish in the middle of the room. His noisy outburst takes all his energy as he throws his entire body into it, showing how, at this self-centered stage of development, he just wants to express himself and attract attention. In contrast, the Victorian boy makes his own noise with a hearty shout, but has also been given purpose-built musical toys such as drums and tin trumpets. He is at a different stage of maturity and needs more stimulation to develop his creativity. Although perhaps both the boy's trumpet tooting and the toddler's gibberish are just as irritating for any parent listening. Okay, nice grade 4 question there. The level 3 question, in source A, the boy is only a year old but still makes his presence felt around the house by making lots of noise, especially when he's tired. He barks gibberish in front of people, which suggests he is immature and likes the attention he gets from showing off. However, the boy in source B is older and more independent and has real toys to play with, like drums and tin trumpets, which give him the opportunity to be more musical and more mature, rather than just shouting gibberish in the middle of the room like the boy in source A. Okay, so first of all, the level 4, loads more quotations, so that's good. And he makes very good inferences from the text. Remember, when you are making an inference, it's about what you understand. What did you understand when you read it? What opinions did you take? What did you assume when you read it? Try and think of the first thing that came into your head. That's always a really good way of trying to write as much as you can for your GCSE when it comes to questions like this. Okay, and you've shown perceptive differences between the texts. With the level 3, you can actually see that there's not a lot of quotation there, so we need some more of this. Okay, and are clear inferences made from both texts? Not in great detail, I wouldn't say. Or is there a big discussion about differences? So maybe there's only 2 statements there, but here we've got about 3, and I would suggest 3-point evidence explains. 3 peels. Okay, so your point, tell me what you mean, tell me what you think, give me some evidence, and then explain the inference. Explain what you've assumed. Okay, and why. Okay, right, so I hope you feel confident answering question 2, paper 2. Obviously, there is quite a bit in that question that you might struggle with. So please watch the video on inference, which helps you to understand what it is and how to make an inference. All right, and please don't forget to ask your tutor in your lessons if you're struggling with this question. Okay, so well done, and I look forward to seeing how you do on your assignment.